What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Can-Am Connection. I'm joined by my usual host, Mr. Chocolate Thunder Jody Williams, and of course, Nathan Williamson jumping on with us again today. How are you guys doing?
Good. You know what, Nathan? You just be a co-host, man. I mean,
Let's
be
right?
real.
It's at this point.
Let's be a co-host because how do we start today? Is because next week's show is going to be obviously about East versus West. So I don't want to say anything about that today. However, man, the latest and greatest. We just had our IFA Nationals over the weekend, and prior to that, there was talk of the banter back and forth, and and Sean Hancock had a few comments, and Chan Shaw, and hey, if you go to IFA Nationals, then you can't compete at East versus West Super Series, Challenger Series, and all that kind of stuff. And I thought this topic.
I have a lot to say about this, Jody.
Go ahead, kick it off.
This is not a dead topic whatsoever because the Canadian Armwrestling Federation is almost dealing with the same kind of thing. Well, we are. And here we are in, the record-setting numbers for your IFA Nationals in the United States. Right. It's like about 500 entries, something like that. And
it's getting bigger.
That's 500 people that, if they keep good to their threats, should be on the ban list for WAF right now. Now, in Canada, we're dealing with a very similar scenario where, that some of our Canadians have, chosen to support WAF, and that's okay. The Canadian Arm Wrestling Federation is taking a neutral stance. So we weren't really, qualifying one for one or the other. However, now we have another organization that came along because, well, there's a lot to say that's gone on behind the scenes, but there is an organization formed in Canada specifically to try to bring the World Championships to here in 2027. By the time it gets here, if you can believe all the things that were said about what will get you banned, there won't be anyone left.
Right. And then they'll pull it from you guys.
Then again, WAF seems to change the rules as they see fit. So they can wipe people off that list. They can do all sorts of things. In fact, I can tell you with absolute firsthand experience, having seen this communication, there was even somebody taken off the doping ban list early as they saw fit so they could attend an event. And it never came to fruition, the event. But I mean,
oh man,
if you go way, way back to the Arm Crossfire days when we interviewed Murcha, he basically said, well, we violate our policy, but we are the policy maker. So we can change our policy.
I remember that. And I was like, wow, that. And here's the thing. So with all that being said, I think I was talking to a good friend of yours, Ryan. I was talking to Chantel, a good friend of mine too, about this.
Yeah.
She kind of gave me her, opinions about it. So we talked for like, an hour or so. But at the end of the day, it's all about the pullers. And what I mean by that is like they are the ones that carve their own path. Because I'll tell you this, when you hear comments and statements about, hey, if you go to IFA, then you can't participate in East versus West Challenger Series. Well, let me ask you a question. No disrespect to those guys, but let's be real. It's for the elite pullers. I am not an elite puller, so guess what? That statement does not apply to me.
Jody, you and I had this conversation. It doesn't necessarily just apply to the elite pullers. If you got a name, if you have a social media following, if you got somebody that's a hookup, it applies to you as well. But I was under the impression, and I thought this was, I've heard this from several people. It's not if you go to nationals, you're banned. It's if you go to worlds, you're banned.
That depends because that narrative has changed.
Because it used to be you could go to WAF Nationals, IFA Nationals, and you're fine. But until you pick a Worlds, then you get your ban.
That's, yes and no. So the narrative has changed. And this is the frustrating part because you don't know what's what. There was a time in Canada where, and let's be clear, the ban list from WAF is not automatically populated by WAF. The ban list from WAF is populated through communication with the North American representatives. Simon. So you have a couple of guys over here that communicate back to WAF and say who is or is not on that list. Now, The one in Canada has, and this is not hearsay, ladies and gentlemen, because I've heard like, oh, it's he said, she said. It's not.
These are the facts.
I have the text messages that say this, that if an official, a referee, a scorekeeper at last year's national championships, you will be found not in good standing with WAF. Why? Because Rick Pinkney was refereeing there, and he was one of the founding members, and he's not in good standing with WAF.
Yeah, IFA, yeah.
And he's recruiting for IFA. Now, that's not a true statement. He was just there as a referee. But because he was there, that statement was made that if you do this, you will be found not in good standing. Now, they never went through with that. Why didn't they go through with that? Because some of their people came to the Nationals, and they would have had to ban them too.
Right.
So it's a threat that is selective in how it is carried out.
So some of them are hollow. Got it.
Well, it's basically up to the people that said it. So that's the frustrating part. There's no clear criteria. If someone gets caught doping, they know they're getting banned. If somebody goes to one tournament or another tournament, well, maybe they get banned, but who knows? Because that list is now kept private. But I had seen it at one point, and there are a lot of North Americans on it.
That doesn't shock me.
Yeah. So it's like to hear all that, and then of course everyone has their opinions, and they're going back and forth with the banter. And I'm just like, you know what, guys? Still, who the fuck cares? Because there's so many organizations now, right, where it's going to cater to somebody, whether that be, if you still want to have that, that national, or I'm sorry, that world title, there is WAF, there is IFA. If you just want to be on the elite shows, the very top tier, then there's King of the Table, East versus West. One notch down, you got Knuckles Up, AWC. Well, I guess they changed their name now.
Yeah, Global Elite, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's that Montana Armbender, Flash Pin Productions, and the list goes on and on.
Sean's doing an event every week.
Right. Then you got, Arm Gods and Arm Wars, World Series of Arm Wrestling, right? So you got all kind of opportunities for these big time organizations to carve your path in. So I think this whole thing is fucking funny to me,
Well, like you and I had the conversation, Jody, too. Like we're all essentially independent contractors. We get to pick and choose who we work for and where we go and this, that, and the other. Like as a ref and as a puller, like I've worked for, people that are in IFA. I've worked for people that are in WAF. Like, what are you going to do? Well,
here's the issue, right? So in the United States, and I mean, no offense by this, but in the United States, you guys are used to having a few major organizations.
Yeah.
So you have freedom of choice, right? You can go to the USA, whatever the hell it is,
USAA, yep.
AAA, or you had a few national championships, and there was never really a threat of banning. And life will go on in the United States as per normal, because let's face it, there aren't huge teams clamoring to go to WAF from the United States or Canada, for that matter. They're a very small, select group of people.
Yep.
So you have, a nationals, and one of them is arguably, or not even arguably, better than the other. A national is a national, and there's no real clear definitive on which one is superior. In Canada, we have this, what we were proud of is unity, is we had one national championship, we had one governing organization, and now we have another organization that's kind of coming in, affiliating themselves with someone that we don't agree with their values, and it's creating a rift through the arm wrestling community in Canada. And that's a problem. And we are making efforts to bring everyone back to the table, but you got Big Brother over here putting all these extra steps in place and these rules that are really messing with people. And now they're using East versus West to make themselves even more powerful and put themselves on an even higher pedestal.
Right.
Frustrating.
I mean, out of Canada, you have what? You've had how many people out of Canada compete at East versus West? You had Pork Chop and Devin. That's it.
Matt Mask.
Matt. Sorry, Matt.
Well, and quite a few guys like going down to the qualifiers.
Yeah, but I mean, on the big stage. You only
Right.
had,
But
what,
there's
3.
that. Let's compare this to minor hockey in Canada.
Yeah.
If there is a 1% chance that somebody can make it to the NHL,
Do
they
it.
will do everything in their power to make sure they do it.
Yep.
Arm wrestling, East versus West, is probably seen as the brass ring. It is the tip of the spear elite. If somebody thinks that maybe someday they can get there, they're probably going to put a real effort into doing that, and it's going to impact the choices they make now.
Well, remember how you were saying, like, oh, if you compete at IFA, you can't go to East versus West. Didn't Corey Miller pull for Kopchik? And Corey's a diehard IFA guy.
That's the issue. That's the issue,
Like,
because
Here you go.
Camille Jablonski. But
he fucking won a national. Didn't he win like a world or something like that? IFA?
Worlds.
They did, yeah.
They did win a
So
Worlds.
Camille, there's this thing now where you can get a one-time pardon, essentially.
Exemption.
But you have to sign this document that says if you ever pull there again, you are banned for life.
Yeah.
And there's no exception. So
and
they
Camille
will ban
might just say, "Fuck it, I'll go to Knuckles Up and still make a name."
Let's say Camille goes back to IFA and pulls an IFA Worlds again. Essentially, he will never go back to a WAF event.
Which is, to him, is fine. When Dean Welsh says you have to write a begging letter, because Camille is so good right now and so hot right now. It's like, okay, if you ban me, fine. Guess what? I can still go to Arm Gods. I can still go to Arm Wars, Knuckles Up, and still make a big name for myself. If you want to go that route, if you're going to ban that guy, that's how stupid this thing is.
I mean, he's got some smoke behind him after the Devin match, but all you have to do is look at what Matyushenko did to him, and it just shows that the levels of this game.
Recency bias. I think Camille is on the rise. And he's got some big things coming up.
That match is going to be interesting, but that's next week. So,
yeah, it's I think his star's in the rise, and he's not going to do anything to hinder his opportunities. I don't think you'll see him pull at a.
I agree.
IFA.
Well, it's kind of like all the people getting ready to pull the PAL thing over in Dubai. Like
that's low hanging fruit, man. Like that, you could go over there and win some money because a lot of the elites will not be there.
Well, I'm talking like the top 8 thing that they're putting on. Like you have like in the 86 kilo class, you got like Corey Miller, Dan Moser from the United States. In the 78 kilo class, you got Svetan.
Yes, Neil, exactly.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Absolutely, Neil. I completely agree.
So here's my thing with like Svetan and all those guys having the ban. I saw, Ingen came out with a thing about Bowen, like, well, if he wins a qualifier and then comes over here and wins a thing, like, he gets a match. What if Svetan does it? What if all those Bulgarians that are banned from WAF do it? Plowman does it. I mean, what if they do it? Does that still apply to them?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so, man. Like there seems to be.
I guess it kind of answers the question because remember Svetan won the thing that for King of the Table, and he never got his match.
I don't think you'll see. Like it seems to be a level of banning. Like there's tiers to it. That's the weird part about it. Like I don't think I'm on that list. The issue is you don't even know. Like I saw Mason and Scott Drosy from Canada's name on that list. I saw it with my own eyes. And I don't think they ever received a letter or anything saying, hey, you're on this list.
Oh, I could be on that list as a referee, and I haven't even I haven't repped at the Worlds. So
that's why this whole thing is so comical. It's only if it benefits them or not. So, and that's what it comes down to. And it's like, okay, let's just not ban because before it was like, okay, you're banned. Then it's like, well, write this letter, then you can't go through. It's like, okay, once you did that, then there's no such thing as a ban anymore, in my opinion.
The one thing I will say, and I'll defend Ingen wholeheartedly in this, is he has to go through the Turkish Federation, the sporting federation. So his hands are tied. He is 100% concurrent onto what WAF says because that's the organization in Turkey. So nobody can be like, oh, Ingen's this, Ingen's that. Like he's doing what he has to do and abiding by his federation laws, or otherwise the event's not happening anymore. So
No.
like people attacking him, like kind of because he wants to hold the event in Turkey, right? For people to attack him saying, "Oh, he's doing this or doing that," like, man, everybody's got a set of rules they got to play by sometimes.
Yeah. Us standing up for this and saying it's wrong is not the same as Engen doing it. We're not going to lose our livelihood by saying we don't agree with it. Whether he does or not. And okay, the Welsh Wolverine says, not really. The member countries should vote the WAF leaders out. They could, but
they're not going to.
Yeah. And I remember being in the WAF Congress years and years ago when Fred was the president and Asen was there. Somebody, Igor was there, and they allowed proxy voting at the time. They had these yellow slips of paper, and it looked like they each had a damn bouquet of them, like, because that's just how many countries they would sell memberships to and hold up this thing. So you're casting 12 votes instead of 1. Like, it just became a huge game, but I'm not sure how it is now if they still allow proxy voting. I think they don't. And that's kind of how the European countries are somewhat in control of what happens at WAF.
Well, we have a promoter on the show, well, not on the show, but in the chat, Neil, and he'll tell you, point blank, can you send the link to Neil, see if he wants to hop on here for a second? Because, when you're a promoter like Neil, right, his obligation is to go, okay, giving athletes an opportunity to showcase their, skills. It doesn't matter what you are, like WAF, IFA, doesn't matter. He's going to say, hey, I want this guy, I want that guy, put them together. Let's see what we can mix out of that. I'm going to get a bunch of pullers. I'm going to throw them against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
That's,
that's not necessarily, it might be for Neil, but I do know, I wish I could say all the things I know.
Are you sworn to secrecy?
But I do know that there are promotions that have attempted to have certain pullers come, and it has been interfered with by the World Arm Wrestling Federation. Now, that's not to say like they're not coming in and saying to a promoter, don't do it. They're contacting the country federation and saying, do not allow this athlete to go.
Yeah.
Yes, Neil, we'll still be on. But
it's a slippery slope.
Right. But again, here's the deal. And when this thing first came out, my original thought was, how is somebody going to try to tell me I can't represent my own country? Right? That was my initial thought before we got deeper and deeper and deeper into this, right? Whether I'm talking with, Chantel LeDuc, whether I'm talking with Denise Waddles and Leonard Harkless or whoever, I didn't talk to, Ryan Espey. I talked to so many people about this topic. I've had friends on both sides, right? I've had good friends of mine on the WAF side of the fence. Hey, you should come over to play, WAF. This is where, all the real talent is. And I get where they're saying. I really do. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, but what hoops do you have to go through? I don't want to sit there and have somebody ban me from a different country nonetheless and tell me where I can and can't compete. The fuck for? Ain't nobody paying my bills from any federation. Let's get that straight. Point number one.
Well, that's where things get tricky, Jody, because a lot of these countries do pay their athletes. So they're going to pull where their country tells them to pull if they want to keep collecting that state-sponsored money.
That's right. And
we fortunately don't have that, you know what I mean? Or unfortunately or fortunately.
If we followed suit with a lot of the other continents, we would be qualifying for a continental tournament instead of just going off to the Worlds. And currently, Canada, to qualify for WAF, and I apologize if this is not correct, but this is where I've heard from several sources, is that you have to go to Mexico for the North Americans to go on to the World Arm Wrestling Federation Championship.
Yep. That was a big thing they were talking about this year, was having it in Mexico, and people are like, oh, it's going to be logistically a pain in the butt and this, that, and the other. So I know a lot of people didn't go to it this year.
And it's not like it's in Cancun. It's in Mexico City. So.
Okay, and that's another thing. So I was talking with Chantel about this last week, right? And you know, she reached out to me and was like, "Is this true?" And I was like, yeah. And she even had her own opinions about why would one have to go all the way to Mexico to qualify? You have to leave your country to go qualify for a world. That's like us having to go to Iran to go qualify for a world title, a world tournament. For what again?
Well, it's like all the Olympic. It's like if you look at it from like the Olympic qualifying perspective, like your Olympic qualifiers held in your country, and then you go to the Olympics, which is, if we want to think about it as like, I mean, I'm pretty sure you qualify by going to your national of your country. In Mexico, yes, it's part of the North America, but it's not part of the United States.
Right. Yeah.
So,
In
I mean,
Canada, it was the qualifier because there was no second national championship. However, nothing is stopping them from taking the top two from the nationals, at least offering it up. Like it's just, it doesn't make any sense.
well, I think that's the big difference between WAF nationals and the IFA nationals is, you know, WAF nationals, you have to finish top two to go. IFA, if you go to your national and compete, you can still go to worlds and represent your country.
Yeah. Anyway, you know, I'm ingrained in the politics of it because I'm still president of the Canadian Arm Wrestling Federation. However, yeah, there is an election this year. So what I would say to the people starting the other federation is, if you think that you should, you know, be in charge of the Canadian Arm Wrestling Federation, I invite you. Please come, throw your hat in the ring at the
Take my
national.
spot.
And I don't want to. If they beat me, then the arm wrestlers have spoken. If they beat
The fat lad.
the fat lad.
Well, it's about to get real now. Neil, welcome to the show. How we doing?
All right, mate. Running around like
Uh-oh.
a bit of a nutter, but nothing I can't handle. Yeah, how's
So
life in
what's
the
your-
fast lane, guys?
Doing
Whoa.
good, man. What's your take on all this going on with all this hoopla and stuff?
Try and stay out of it best I can, although that's practically impossible most of the time because, yeah, you get spoken to about this a lot from all sides. The most frustrating thing is that this isn't a new thing in arm wrestling. It's a very old thing. It's a very established thing. It's been around for as long as I can remember. I came into the sport sort of 1986, 1987. And I was effectively a child, as a kid. And even at the time, enormous amount of political clambering.
Uh-oh. When he comes back, I'll throw him back in. Oh, there he is.
There we go.
There he is.
Did I lose you guys at that point? Or did
Just
you get
for a
any of that?
second. You said the word political.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
been a lot of political clambering forever in
Yeah.
the sport of arm wrestling, and really for nothing, you know, with no real benefit, it's actually been detrimental for most of the time. It's just political power maneuvering. Very frustrating, really. Very frustrating.
Yeah, and I think probably most pullers would be oblivious to a lot of it until this issue of banning athletes has come up. Because now
That's again not old though, Ryan. You know, back in the day there was I mean, where do you I'll show you how evident this is. You name a country or an area, and I'll tell you the shitstorms, and go back to the 80s, whenever you want.
Yeah. Well,
You name a country, name a region. If you say Europe, I can talk about that. Say USA, it's good to say. USAA.
you guys hearing him okay?
He kind of froze up. Neil, if you can hear me, and Ryan and Neil could probably talk about this more than anything. In the late 90s, their WAF kind of split into two, right? And I remember because 99, there was a WAF that was in Japan and a WAF that was in Russia, because you had World Arm Wrestling Federation and World Arm Sports Federation. And my question was it when they split into two, was there any banning at that point?
Yes, there was. Initially no. Initially, you could go. I did go. So I would attend both events. Became world champion at both. Pulled the same set of guys in a lot of cases, you know. It's ridiculous. You'd go and win a title at one place, you'd go to Egypt, you'd go to Poland, wherever you chose, and same set of dudes. And you'd pull them. It's crazy. And yet the Europeans, obviously, there was only one, because the governance of the other federation didn't really have any European element within it. So it's kind of ridiculous, you know. And what it did do was create a situation where, for the arm wrestlers, there was a tremendous amount of expense, and it thinned down the field at one of them. The other one, it was full strength. But the interesting thing was that the top guys, the absolute cream of the crop, were at both. And why was because they thought they could win. And the guys who didn't believe they could win wouldn't go. They wouldn't spend the money. And there's still, how many guys are going to win it? We can all go to a Worlds, a Europeans, and you know there are 4 names, there are 5 names, and they're going to be the guys. It's one of those 3. It's one of those 5. Always been like that. You know that there can be twists and turns along the way, but when the dust settles, there's going to be 5 guys left standing. And that was always, barring acts of God, that's always pretty much been the case. It's just, and I think a lot of people within the sort of amateur sport, which, 98% of people are, look at all of the disparate elements to make the decision on where they attend. They'll look at, where is it? Can I get a bit of a holiday there? Is it somewhere I want to go? And that's really a decision-making criteria for a lot of people who are not professional arm wrestlers. Sure, if you're the upper echelon, if you're Devon Larratt, if you're Laman Saganashvili, if you're, any of the guys that are the absolute upper brass of the sport, and you can make money from arm wrestling, then of course you treat it differently, you view it differently, and you're a gun for hire. But most of the people in the sport are not that guy. Right. They're not that girl, And even then, the truth of the matter is, for arm wrestling, that there are a few names, and it is a select few, that are any kind of draw. And trust me, there is a lot of misconception around that. Some guys may believe that they're a big name in the sport and they're a really big draw. Not at all. You Devon Larratt, yeah, you're a big draw. You can move the dial. Let me tell you now, you would be shocked how few of those there are. You would be shocked. Yeah. I've put guys on cards and I thought, yeah, it's a big name. Nah, not really. Not really.
Yeah, I've seen that over the years as well. That and sometimes it's not who you think. That's you get a guy like the Arm Wrestling Whisperer, who we just saw on a big pay-per-view, and really has no accolades in the sport, but he does move the needle a little bit.
Interesting. I'd need to see the figures.
I would need to see the figures.
I don't know how that pay-per-view did with those 2 on it.
And sometimes
I don't think we ever will.
YouTube audience doesn't translate to the pay-per-view audience.
Yeah, right. I think there's a very nuanced set of criteria around the considerations made. Everybody talks about wanting to appeal to the wider audience, but appealing to the wider audience and getting to a situation where the wider audience will pay are 2 very different things.
Well, that would bring up the Arm God thing to Neil. That, I mean, that kind of brings that up, right? You had an amazing card of amazing matches. You got Bowen and Ron Bath, Pom Dimitrov on the card, and then you have the Beerman and Uncle John match as the main event. We don't know the figures on that. Did it bring more eyes to the pay-per-view, or did it turn a lot of people away?
I have no idea. I don't know. Only the Arm Gods governance would know that. Paul and
that's what I think it all comes down to that, right? Like you said, moving the needle, right? Certain pullers move the needle. We don't know that.
Never be able
an acid test for that is very. Didn't the thumbtack match go live last night?
Yes.
So wait a minute. So
I think I saw last was 4,000.
You will see how many people. If that was a very big match, and I have absolutely not a frigging clue what that is. So, but if that was a big match, you'll see it, won't you? Let's see if I can find it. I don't even know where it is.
I was going to say, last I saw, I think it was 4,500 views or something like that.
5,000 5,300 views in 19 hours. So it's all right. It's not, but that's free. It's not big. It isn't big. Big ones go way quicker.
Matt Mass cooking macaroni will get 20,000 in that same period.
Well, put it this way. The Fix is a weekly chat show.
Yeah.
A weekly chat show. And is, I wouldn't say groundbreaking in any way. It's just a weekly chat show. We've got good guests on there, and we've got hopefully pertinent chat. And before anybody thinks that this is a knock on Arm Gods, not at all. Not really on the chain where I want to come on anywhere and knock another promotion. I'd rather not bother. I'd just let guys can do what they want to do, and that's that. But the Fix on a weekly basis probably gets a similar number to that in that period of time. So if you were looking at if I did a show on the Sunday night and I was looking at the views on the Monday afternoon, I'd probably be expecting it to be somewhere around the 6,000 views, 7,000 views. And if I did a big one, like we just had Levan and Devon, which is an exceptional show in terms of consumer appeal, audience appeal, that was up to 17 or 18,000 views. The more rounded the show out at around 11 p.m., 11:30 p.m. UK time. And when I came round in the morning, so 7 o'clock in the morning, I checked the figures, and I think it was about between 15 and 19,000 views. So that's a big show for what we would do. So I don't know what Arm God's aspirations were on the Thumbtack match. I don't know whether they're really concerned about that. They don't put a great deal of effort into the YouTube channel, and obviously they're going for a shock factor, the Howard Stern effect.
Yeah, Jerry
Springer. I don't know.
I can elaborate on that.
Each to their own.
I had Evan on my show last week, and we talked about this. And he and Paul Maiden encouraged me to go watch the event because I told them the press conference would turn me off. Like, that wasn't necessary. Hell, even Ron Bath was on Evan's show last night and said the press conference of that shenanigans wasn't necessary. Now, what Evan was explaining was that, hey, we want to cater to the people who don't know about arm wrestling and say, hey, this is pretty cool. Let's watch it. I understand that. But on the other side of the coin, if you get those new people thinking this is arm wrestling and they go look at Arm Gods, East versus West, King of Table, Knuckles Up, and they don't see that shenanigans, then they're going to think, well, what the hell? This is not what we saw. So it's a double-edged sword as far as that goes. And that's why I was trying to explain to Evan that his match with Uncle John sold by itself. I was intrigued with the match by itself without the tax. And I was, for it at one point, but then the press conference just it just left a bad taste in my mouth. I'm like, okay, now it's not even arm wrestling anymore. And Paul Maiden said it best. Hey, we're entertainment. Well, good. I'm glad you guys said that, because up until this point, you were trying to convince everybody this is the best arm wrestling promotion, which to a certain degree, yeah and no. But when you have a tag match that is the main event, when you got legends like Tim Bresden and Ron Bath on the card, RVJ, Bullen,
That's the purist. That's your purist Jody talking.
Yeah, sorry.
I wish there was a metric, or I would like to know what they're using to determine what was successful in that pay-per-view.
Analytics. They say ages 18 to 24. Paul was saying some kind of number, like if you look at your analytics, it just say, hey, your age range, that's who they're trying to, cater to.
Yeah, but the other thing to be, I got to be careful. You come across, you don't come across like, more, because there's weird things in the world of the internet and online and all of these things. But one thing I would say from my experience, a one time deal can be very misleading. I think one of the things that you look for, and that I would always look for as a promoter, is continuity, because it takes away the potential pitfall of having something which performs well the first time out and then is far less appealing the next time out. In fact, the whole ethos of what we do at Arm Wars is exactly geared around that. So, for example, what we do, number one, just to expel a myth. I think a lot of people don't understand what Arm Wars is or is about. And I'm partially responsible for that to some extent because I've listened to the chat, to the feedback from the community. So it's that sort of you talk, we listen type thing. And in some respects, I shouldn't have done. In some respects, I should have just stuck to your guns and done what you do. Because people who are fans of anything are always going to be fans of it. And people who are not fans of it probably won't be, or will be certainly slower to come around. You know what I mean? So our ethos is that we would try to create the brand for the individual in a partnership or collaborative manner. So Ryan Espey or Jody Williams come. I mean, Ryan's a terrible shame as an example because the guy had the worst run of luck. I think it's possible but I mean, I'm surprised if he didn't, stub his toe on the door end before he bloody got out of bed that morning because the lad's luck come into reality check, which was an incredibly difficult and, in my opinion, mistaken event. I tried to go too early. But the run of luck that Ryan had coming into that was dreadful. Now, getting back to what I was saying, Ryan comes, Jody comes, any arm wrestler comes to the event. What we would do is we try to maximize your time on camera, be that in the match itself or purely and simply sitting you down and talking to you. Jody, you've got far better experience of this than Ryan would have. Because what we've seen since we came out of COVID has been an evolution towards where I want to go. And I actually hit the fucking nail on the head out of the blocks after the show Ryan did. I did a show called Iron House, the original Iron House.
Yep.
That was the one. Let me tell you now, that was the one. And I had enough balls to stand up. There's a quote by Bruce Lee, right? And it was actually told to me on a night out with his daughter, Shannon Lee. And we were talking about the TV show Kung Fu. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Carradine did? Yeah. I was out with, believe it or not, Bruce Lee's wife, Bruce Lee's daughter, and Bruce Lee's daughter's little girl, Ray. I was showing around London. We took them out for, and ironically, his wife is now married to, Bruce Lee's wife is now married to another guy, Bruce, amazingly. But anyway, we were out for a meal and she said, I said, oh, did it really upset? Like, did it upset Bruce what it showed in the film where Carradine got the job and so on? And Shannon said, yeah, it did. It did upset him. And Linda jumped in and she said, yeah, it really upset him. But Bruce used to always say, have the bravery, enough bravery to be disliked.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really, really strong comment. And it always stayed with me. I remember at the time I went a bit quiet and I think Linda thought, oh, have I pissed him off or what? And I was actually internalizing it and thinking, shit, that's pretty profound in some ways. And I should have listened to it and I should have gone with it when we did, because the Iron House was the one. It was unique and it showed a uniqueness. And what we would try to do, and have done it very successfully with guys like Devon, for example. Michael Todd would be another. Jeff Hale. Frodo Hoagland is a really interesting one. Because Frodo Hoagland, if you look at the longevity of Frodo Hoagland and where Frodo Hoagland has been, of what the strength of the concept that Arm Wars achieves, this would be it. Because you look at Devon Larratt and you've got a 6'6" special forces soldier who is a very, very unique, very strong, very forward character, right? What's not to like if you're the consumer coming in and you're looking for that larger than life character? You got it. There he is. This guy gets shot at for a living. He's one of the best arm wrestlers, if not the best arm wrestler in the world. Can talk as much as you want about any subject. Is definitely cut from a cloth that few people are. But then you look at Frodo Hoagland. Guys from Norway. Carpenter. Says fuck all. Can arm wrestle. Very shy. Has a strap line. I do a great deal else. But you strap the guy up to a guy on an arm wrestling table, and that man would pull the devil in straps. And probably win from positions you don't think are possible. That's his only hope. But you look at that man's longevity from the early noughties, right? The early 2000s through to now. And he has been in every major promotion ever. LPALW. And yet doesn't really punch his brand to the roof. But exposure, dripping tap, familiarity, metronome. People by people, and they like what they see. Some people he will resonate with, others he may not. But that same thing works. That same formula works for people. And if you are regularly in that environment, Uncle John's another one, isn't he? Uncle John, nobody had ever heard of him. If John Thompson came on here now, he'd tell you the same.
Yep.
Now, everywhere.
Yep.
He on. Why? Because the dude's a natural entertainer. You might not think he's the best arm wrestler, but he can talk for days. And if you're pretty, and you get to slag that guy off, talk about him like you know anything about him, when really you know nothing about him whatsoever. But the fact that it has created an emotion in Pradeep, that he feels that he needs to make a point about that, surely it's created something, hasn't it?
Yeah.
There's an embryonic change gone on there, an emotional change.
Yeah.
So what we would do is we try to give you your brand, and then you run with it. Take it wherever you want. Never been a contract. The contract is that we look at you and you look at us, and if we do right by you, you'll want to come back again, because we will continue to build that brand for you, and we'll do it in a beautiful, cinematic, quality way. And that's it. Anyway, I'll shut up now.
Nah, what you said was legit. It's true. You know, what Nathan was saying about the Whisperer, and you know, I get. I mean, some people kind of said, "Hey, Whisperer and Autumn Laird, why these guys get the limelight where they have nothing to show for leading up to that match?" You know, and you know, for some, I kind of get what they're saying, and you know, what you need now is two big names to headline the show to get eyes on it. Then you build that show up by putting some up and comers, and then next thing you know, voila, you know, because everybody's going to watch the main event. That's why you have the preliminary matches leading up to the main event for that. So I think that's what King of the Table was trying to do. I think, in my opinion, that's just my opinion, man. You know, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, you want to put, what's the old adage, put asses in seats, right? So the more
you're
asses
right,
you can put in a seat.
and Etienne is doing that in his own way.
Yeah.
All these guys, I mean, people will say, "Oh, the popularity of Devon is responsible for the growth of arm wrestling," and yes, sure it is, massive draw. But so many of these people have all fed into it. What Engin's doing with East versus West, monumental. It's what it is a perfect storm of things heading in one direction, and it doesn't matter whether you are looking at Arm Gods, East versus West, Knuckles Up, the Arizona State.
That's
you name it. This is a perfect storm. Heading in one direction, and that rising tide is raising all ships, and all ships are arm wrestling, and arm wrestling are all ships, and it's coming up.
Yeah. Piggybacking on the Frode thing, Neil, like I like Frode could get beat 6-0, and I don't care. The moment I'm looking for in that Frode Haugland match is that smile, that iconic Frode Haugland smile. You want to see it. Like, everybody tune. If you see that smile, you know, oh, it's on. Like, it's the same thing when Devin starts talking to somebody on the table. When he's there, he's in his spot, he knows it. He starts chirping at him. Like,
mate, when I first put Devin Lara on a card, I'll shit you not. I've still got the correspondence. I was looking back at it the other day. I was looking back at this the other day, right? I sent this over to, at that time, I was working the PAL alongside Igor Mazarenko. I was the matchmaker at the PAL, 1/3 of the PAL. And I said, look, I'd come across Dev years earlier, and I'd watched his growth, watched his progression. When I first met him in 1999, he was solid, but he was a skinny dude, and he was just coming along, you know. By the time we got round to 2005, bad individual. Saw him again. We're over in Japan, and animal, really, really coming on. And he was on the radar, but sort of, there's so many arm wrestlers, such a vast array. And I'm fucking going to say something in a minute, exclusive on this show, but I mean it, because I've just refreshed my own mind on where I should be going. And I said having the balls, well, it's coming in a minute, so get this. Uh-oh. But at that I remember that day, I went home and I was straight on to Igor and Hassan. I said, I'll tell you what, guy I'm bringing over, guy I'm going to make a match with, Canadian dude, Devon Larratt, young man, you won't know him. They're like, who? I'm like, Devon Larratt. He's called Devon Larratt. Bad man. And I said, and this is what put in my head, there are no limits for this kid. And they said, why? And I said, everything. Levers, grunt, power, endurance, you name it. And they said, nah, not good enough. Who would you match him against? And I said, Taras. Ivakin Taras. And they openly laughed. He said, well, I'll tell you what, he'll get murdered. And I said, no, he won't. He might not win, but he won't get murdered. It'll be a good match, much closer than you think. This guy's for real. They said, well, it's on you. And we have a little bet on it. And you can stop at that point and say the rest is history. But the point is, I got convinced them because there was the Superstar Showdown in Chehalis.
Oh, yeah.
So in this event, in that event, Sol Ingram gig. Hope you're well solid out there. But the Superstar Showdown in Chehalis, you got Marcio, who was, and always has been a fucking savage. But at that time, young man, all original parts, going well, rock strong. Dev takes him apart that day. You have John, a younger, much better John. Devon gave John a lot of hard work. Other guys in there. Luke was in there. Remember Luke, Ryan?
Luke Reimer, yeah.
Bad man. And his brother. But Luke, bad man. You know, they're rock strong. I send that footage around saying, this is the kid I'm telling you about. That's him. And they're like, holy shit. And I said, I'm telling you, he's not normal. This lad is a freak. With the next thing you know, we're on in Dubai. He comes over. I make the match. I put him against Taras. Screamer. Arm wars in between, but we got him in the Arm Wars event, and he did exactly what I have just described. Consistent outings. Ron Bath. He's pulling all the dudes that you're putting him against. And it got to the stage, nobody wants to arm wrestle him anymore because he's kicking everybody's head in, apart from Michael Todd, who was begging to arm wrestle him. But everyone, Ryan was involved in the Sin City Gathering, the original top 8.
That was great, yeah.
Yes.
At the top of the Vegas MGM. Now, that approach and that whole thing, if you look at what Engin's doing in the East versus West and the fact that it's Jurassic Park, I mean, guys over there, this card's another example of it. Let me tell you, unless you're in the hardcore, there is a sprinkling of guys within that card that nobody has a fucking clue who it is. But I can assure you that dude will pull you out your goddamn shoes with the laces tied. Everybody on there is a friggin' animal. I mean, I was speaking to people the other day, and they're like, Peter Margarin, who the hell is that? They have no idea. If they do their homework and they look at Moldova and they look at just his pedigree in Ukraine and in the elite amateur events, they'll see that Petro is a friggin' beast. Betkili, when he first came on, they put him against Oleg, and everybody's like, this guy's no chance. Yeah, he's got a chance. The whole card is stacked with weapons, But let me tell you now, it will take exposure, and more exposure for those guys to get known. So what I want to do is work. If you look at my track record, right, I'll work with anyone that's quality. True. If I believe in what they're doing, If I think they're showing arm wrestling in the right light, in a professional light, I'll work with them. I've worked with UAL, WAL, PAL, all of those guys over and anyone, ruler of the nation, anyone who's really, his heart is in it and they're showing the sport in the right way, I'll support them. I'll work with them. I'll try to help them. Anyone. My only line would be drawn when that I don't believe that's the case. Now, with East versus West, one of the things that they require is those guys that they want to churn out need serious help in terms of marketing themselves, as do 99% of all arm wrestlers, mate. 99% of arm wrestlers need that.
It reminds me of Jerome Loud. It's like nobody knows who Jerome is, but that is because he's not on social media. He doesn't travel a whole hell of a lot here and there. But when that man steps on the table, oh my God.
Hey, you don't need to worry about Jerome. He's so good that we're going to do it for him.
Yes, because
by the time he's done, people will be talking about him anyway.
Like, he's a great
Jerome
example.
Is a great example. Yeah. Jerome is a great example. Dude is an absolute monster. Strong as shit. But people might think, the funny thing is, you just hit the nail on the head there, both of you, Ryan and yourself, because if you've been in the game, you've known about Jerome. Jerome's been there a long time. Jerome ain't the new thing. Jerome's smacked about Todd Hutchins in the past, smacked about Jordan Sill, and many, many more, up
Dan
to in the East versus West qualifying. Yeah, exactly. Crushing dudes all over the place. And there are so many others like that. But who knows?
Yeah.
Really. Outside of the hardcore, who knows?
Yeah. And he's getting ready to pull RBJ, and everybody's like, oh, this is such a mismatch. And I'm like, you guys do not know Jerome.
Yeah. Mate, Rob Vision, who I was speaking to about this very subject and other things last night. I'm good friends with Robert, as many people know. I really like the dude, and he's a weapon, let me tell you now. And Rob is taking Jerome very seriously indeed. He knows exactly what he's facing, and so he should.
Yes, he should.
Because the lad is strong.
Yeah.
So here's the one that I was going to say, right? I got Iron House 4 coming up in May. So doors open season. People always saying, how do I get on there? Well, you tell me who should be on there. Who's the guys that should be on there?
Frode should be on there, hands down.
What about new guys? What about guys that nobody's ever heard of? What about if you were sat watching the show? Who are the guys that you think are most deserving?
Jerome, for sure. I would love to see Jerome on there. Jerome, I'm going
to say a Canadian.
Go on for it.
Mason Drosy.
I know that name.
A kid.
I love him, Ryan.
Yeah,
I know that name.
I'll tell you what. Right now, if Mason wants in, he's in. If he wants in, he's in.
I'm going to message him and his father and see if they
love the man.
I know exactly who Mason is. Yep.
I can show you messages from myself to Devon. Just after I've been watching Canadian Nationals and various other events in Canada, just checking, I'm scanning, and I've sent messages saying, "This guy's ace."
I'll give you another name.
Okay.
Because Jason Merlot.
Oh yeah, Jason.
Mate, Jason, I have offered Jason so many times. Listen, Jason, I love Top Rod, but one thing, Jason is, and rightly so, and good on him, is heavily in bed with the Knuckles Up crew. Good on him. They've wrapped their arm around him. It makes all the sense in the world. He's from that part of the US. Why the hell? He's their guy, right?
How about whoever comes out of this 220 round robin on top? Because there are some absolute killers getting ready to battle at Arizona State.
I'll say,
just while we're on the Jason Merlo front as well. Motherfucker got away with one against Tom Holland. I'll tell you that. Dude, that was a.
I'll give you another one, Neil. How about somebody like Robbie Russell?
Love him.
Yeah, Robbie.
Offers
Brett
already
Rocker.
gone out via Tim Talmadge.
You got guys like Brent Rockers in the United States who don't. I mean, Brent's a quiet guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he doesn't talk a whole lot. Just won nationals, both hands.
Yeah. I would
Mason,
like
I love Mason.
I'm trying to think
Brilliant.
of who else.
Right. Because nobody has a goddamn clue who Mason is. Anybody you can think of like
What
that.
about
Nobody
what
has
about
a
the guy that just won the 154 and 176 round robin in North America, Hunter Knopf? He beat Dustin Hyatt. He beat all those guys.
Love it. Okay, there's right. There's two.
There it is.
There's two. So same thing. If Hunter wants in, he's in. Mate, if you're watching, if anybody knows him,
I'll message him.
Because you've got to be as good as you. I want to be as good as my word.
Because
But if you want
he trains with
wants to collab, I'm on. Let's go.
he trains with Silvers and Warzinski. So
Jeff Miller is in the chat. Jeff, if you're getting a hold of Mason, tell him to watch this episode.
yeah, I'll
Because-
message Adam and Silvers and then.
I'm looking for who's the next Devon Larratt? Who's the next Michael? Who's the next name? Who's the guy?
Yeah.
Because they won't get out there without that light. They won't get out there without the spotlight. We want, like I say, John Thompson might not be the top arm wrestler in the world, but you come over, you shine the right light, and suddenly, boom, away goes a brand. And he can't come to Iron House 4 because right around the corner he's got another event, and good on him because that's what we want.
Yeah,
we've got some issues with some of the UK guys because little blocks get put on us because people like to tell fairy stories, and I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
But there it is.
I do have something positive to say to close the show because
Mhm.
as we're sitting here, I received a message from the Knuckles Up guys, and they've added a match to the upcoming card. And they told me that I could announce it right now.
Okay.
Learned about it 30 seconds ago.
Let's go.
You got Roger Learned
Okay.
against Uncle John.
No shit.
Left-handed,
Wow.
right?
Right-handed.
I believe it is a right-handed match.
Right-handed.
Okay,
Roger
it's a lot
does
more
a
interesting.
left-handed arm wrestling.
It's a lot more interesting right-handed than it is left, in my opinion.
Was everybody poo-pooing on left-handed pullers now? What the fuck?
Well,
I
John
knew
can pull
about
right.
that because of exactly what we were talking about a moment ago.
Yeah.
And true story, John Thompson was on the Iron House 4 card. That opportunity came up. It makes more sense for John and his situation right now. In some respects, good. That's what we try to do, trying to shine the spotlight. And the same situation across the world. But as I say, Mason, if you want in, Hunter, if you want in, let's go. Let's find the next stars, find the next guys. You know what's a great thing? Where we started today was around the sort of political bullshit and all of that kind of thing. If you want to empower yourself, if you want to get to that situation, that's how you do it. You get to a situation where you become an entity.
Yeah.
But all entities got to start somewhere.
Right.
They sure do. Well, gentlemen, it has been a slice. I am sitting in a hotel room in Brandon, Manitoba, and I dipped out of a conference for municipal politics to be here on the show. So I got to get back to doing that. I appreciate all you guys jumping on. Neil, thanks. Nathan, pleasure as usual. And
I'm always.
Chocolate Thunder, my man.
Cheers,
I'll be back.
Nathan.
So don't worry. I'll be back. It's got to get some things lined out. I'll be back.
All right, everybody.
I'll get there one day.
We'll see y'all next week.
Yeah, we'll go
Later.
over our predictions for East versus West.
Yep.
I'm going to win again, so it doesn't matter.
You're not winning. It's going to be.
What I missed
Jody's
one last time. So.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Hey, it's been a pleasure. Nathan, Ryan, Neil, thanks for hopping on the show. Everybody in the chat, hey, you guys enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you guys next week.
Take it easy, lads. Bye-bye.